In this game I'll cover the LEVON ARONIAN encounter from the 9th round of Norway chess. Arian, one of Offerspill's best players, faced Armenia's best player of maybe of all time, I'm not sure, but definitely a candidate for top spot. Anyway, Arian suffered a bit during Norway chess, but had a fantastic chance to beat LEVON ARONIAN in this game, and as we'll see, he came pretty close very early in the game as well. So this is a CAVEMAN opening. Arian decides that the exchange variation is his kind of game, and he's played this a couple of times before. Bishop d3, knight f6, h3 to stop the bishop from going to g4, as this is very often black's problem piece in this variation. Often black wants to exchange this one off pretty early. g6, knight at3, and bishop f5 is a typical example of this. Black wants to exchange the bishops off, even though that means getting a double pawn. This double pawn is not so bad for black because it enables rook g8 and e6, knight e4 with a very good grip on the center. So often white wants to avoid capturing on f5. Sometimes knight e5 to capture with the knight on d3 is possible, but also just retreating with bishop e2 as Arian does, and just making some fun of this bishop on f8 as it's not perfectly placed. Could get chased away with a lot of different moves. Knight d7, castles, and now e6 from Aronian. This bishop might get into trouble after a subsequent g4 if black's not careful. Bishop f4 from Arian, queen b6, b3, and now Aronian plays a gambit move with g5. Really going for it in this game, Aronian, probably wanting to put some pressure on Arian with the black pieces, and a gambit move is often the way to go to make your opponent think and maybe even get nervous. Arian, however, played almost a perfect game. Bishop g5, accepting the gift. Bishop h4, and then rook g8, which is of course black's strategy. He wants to put some pressure on white in the g file. King h1, just sidestepping this threat of bishop takes h3, e5, again going for it Aronian, 2 pawns down, but a nice initiative. However, it has to be said that the computer really does prefer white's position here. It's 2 pawns, and black's compensation looks dubious, at least a bit temporary. Bishop c5, queen e1, just protecting everything. Rook c8, knight b2, and again Aronian goes back, trying to put some pressure on f2, but it's becoming clear that the compensation and black's attack is not really that dangerous, and that white is definitely for choice here. Arian now plays a very good move. Knight takes e4, and now d-e4. And if you would like, you could pause the video at this point and really go for it and think for yourself, because white has a fantastic option here in this position. It's not easy to spot at all, actually, because Arian didn't play the star move in this position, but the computer, brutal and relentless as always, points out that e6 is a very good move, and the point is to destabilize black's position in terms of coordination and to improve white's coordination. So how to achieve this? Well, queen takes e6 is the most logical capture for black, so we'll take a look at that. Now bishop c4 is a good move. Then the queen has to move again. Queen g6 is logical, putting some pressure on g2 and covering e4. But as we can see, white has the time to play rook d1 and not really minding the d pawn threatening the knight, because there's a pin to the king on e8 thanks to this e6 move. So the pawn sacrifice was to improve white's coordination and to really get closer to black's king. And now king f8, sidestepping the pin. Now knight d4, and as we can see, the knight is perfectly placed in the center of the board. Black's position is chaotic at best. He's still a pawn down, and the king on f8 is not really feeling great, I guess. It looks a bit airy, and white's position is definitely for choice, almost winning, I would say. Instead, Arian played the human move, knight h2, which is also fine, keeping white's advantage. Not winning, but it's still very good. Knight e5, rook d1, same idea as before, trying to activate the rook. Queen h6, threatening the bishop. Rook d5 is interesting here, and you can work out the variations for yourself, but queen h4, rook e5 is the main point, and rook e4 at the end, because there's a discover check on b5. So this endgame, for example, with knight g4 at the end, threatening a fork on f6 and just getting ready to play c4 in the next move, would keep white's advantage, at least for now. So black has two bishops, the bishop pair, but that's really not enough in this position. White has the better pawn structure and also a pawn to the good. However, Arian played bishop g3. Nice move from ARONIAN, trying to wreck white's pawn structure. Didn't really gain any material playing this, but it's a nice move because white's pawn structure is slightly damaged. Queen b6, trying to force the trade of queens and almost improve his own pawn structure, because he wants to get some more control over these squares, and of course limit white's attacking possibilities and initiative in this position, as the king on e8 still isn't feeling very safe. Arian sidesteps this, queen f1, very nicely done, and now activating the queen again, f6, and now he played knight g4, Arian, which is it's a very good move. h4 might be an improvement, trying to poke at the bishop on g6, and of course trying to win the pawn on e4. We'll take a look at e3, trying to, of course, save the bishop but also save the pawn. We don't mind this, because the point of this whole operation is the fantastic knight g4, threatening of course on f6, and if you're super greedy, of course knight g4, queen g4 is not on the cards here, because you threaten both the rook on c8 but also a decisive check on g8, so that's no good. But this bishop takes d1 move needs to be checked thoroughly, as we will do here. So black wins an exchange, or maybe even a full rook. We don't mind. This is of course very demanding calculation for the players. I'm not sure any of the players considered this variation at all, but it's super computer-ish, but it's also nice to see. And after king d8, we just take on e5, bishop e2, and now it's almost curtains, because if king b8, then of course we have a very nice fork, and of course we will take on b6 and then on e3, and we'll win the game. King c6 is no good, because this actually ends up in mate. Big chance for Arian. Of course this mate would probably not occur on the board, but it's a nice variation to see. The full potential of white's position comes clear when you see those kind of variations. Anyway, knight g4 played. Takes, still very good for white this. Rook d8, Arian does not want to exchange rooks, as that would of course limit his own initiative and also increase black's possibilities to secure a draw, because make no mistake, ARONIAN is in drawing mode in this position. He does not have any dreams of winning the game, not anymore, because Arian's played a fantastic game. Queen g7, queen e7. And now some checks, and we're going back and forth at least a couple of times. And Arian sidesteps the perpetual, but after bishop f5 and the exchange of bishops, then his initiative and advantage drops down a bit, because black's coordination is much better in this position, and due to the passed e-pawn, black has a sufficient counterplay to secure himself a draw, because there's There's no good blockade for white in this position, because if you step away with the queen, then the pawn will run. So the blockade is not optimal. Black's other pieces are perfectly coordinated. Just look at these pieces, and the king is pretty safe on g7. Very nicely done by ARONIAN, and sad to say, but a mischance for Arian in a almost perfect game, I would say. So the players agreed to a draw after an exchange of queens and king g1, and the game ended in a draw by mutual agreement.